Considering moving to Midtown Atlanta, here are 10 things that you need to know first. First of all, you should know that Midtown is like a district or a neighborhood of Atlanta. And as you can imagine, it's in the middle of Atlanta, hence the name. And so north of Midtown is like Buckhead, and then south of Midtown is downtown. But Midtown is right there in the middle, right off of 7585. Just kind of southwest of Piedmont Park, just north of like the Fox Theater. And because it's part of the city of Atlanta, you have a very mixed bag of demographics here. You know, this is not an area where you're going to get like the same demographic or the same culture or same race. This is a very mixed bag here in this area. And so you have some young people, some retired people, you have all kinds of different viewpoints and ideas here in Midtown. And that's certainly one of the highlights of living in Midtown. And it's pretty typical of living in like the big city of Atlanta. Remember, Atlanta is an international major US city. Sometimes people still think of Atlanta as being like that old school, like one race Atlanta from like decades ago. We're way past that. Atlanta is not like that anymore. We had the World Olympics here in 1996, which completely transformed the city. We also have one of the busiest, if not the busiest, airport in all of the world. And so you have a lot of exposure to different world ideas and different people here in Atlanta. And so we really have become a melting pot of different cultures here in the city. And Midtown is the middle of that melting pot. What's up, y'all? My name is Victor with Atlanta Suburban Living. We put out videos every week about what it's like to live in Atlanta and the suburbs. Number 2 on the list of the things you got to know before moving to Midtown is where the outdoor spots are. If you're living in the city, you might want to know where these green spaces are, where these parks are, because very often when you're living in the city, you're surrounded by the concrete jungle of Atlanta. So let's talk about where the best ways to get outside are if you're living in Midtown. Without a doubt, one of the biggest and one of the best spots is going to be Piedmont Park. This is in like the northeast part of Midtown, and this is one of the biggest parks in all of Atlanta. And you have lots of green space here, lots of wooded space as well. And then also in Piedmont Park is the Atlanta Botanical Gardens. You don't necessarily have to pay to get into like Piedmont Park. You probably would have to pay for parking if you are not walking there, but you do have to pay to get into the Botanical Gardens. This is like a separate part of the park. It's its own business, the Botanical Gardens. And so walk around Piedmont Park, all of that stuff is free. It's a great place to get outside. But every once in a while, my family and I, we like to check out the Botanical Gardens. And so this is one of those like curated like gardens where somebody is taking care of the landscaping, and you have like azaleas and gardenias and all kinds of flowers that I don't even know how to pronounce. And this is like a different part of the park, but certainly a great option for getting outside. And then also on the east part of Midtown, you have the Atlanta Beltline. The Atlanta Beltline is one of these paved walking trails that goes around the city. And it's also connected to things like the grocery store. It's connected to the neighborhoods. It's connected to maybe even employers, depending on where you work. And so very often people use the Beltline to get around the city. It's a normal way to get around the city, hiking, walking, jogging, riding a bike. You can even like rent one of those scooters, the electric scooters that you ride. You can find those as well on the Beltline, and it's right there in Midtown on the eastern part of Midtown. And then there's Colony Square. It's not really like a green space. It's not green at all, actually. It's kind of like an outdoor area that's paved, and they got shops and restaurants and stuff like that. But Colony Square does have a lot of like outdoor space that you can get out and walk around. Number 3 on the list of the things you got to know before moving to Midtown is all about the arts and the culture. This is probably one of the most arts oriented parts of the city of Atlanta. There are a lot of museums here in Midtown. You've got the High Museum. You have the Alliance Theater. In fact, my family and I just went to the Alliance Theater a while back ago to check out the Christmas play, the Scrooge, whatever that guy, the Scrooge, and the guy that's really mean, but then he becomes really nice when he gets visited by all the ghosts. That guy, we watched that play there at the Alliance Theater. It was excellent. My kids loved it as well. Also, the Atlanta Symphony Hall is right there, and the Fox Theater. The Fox Theater is where they have like a lot of Broadway plays, Wicked, Hamilton, All of those Broadway plays are there at the Fox Theater, and it's kind of on the southern part of Midtown. Number 4 on the list, if you plan on moving to Midtown, that you want to know is it safe? Is Midtown a safe area? Now, this is obviously going to be a very relative question. The best way that I know how to answer this question is it really depends on where you're coming from. If you're coming from another major US city where it is like a typical urban environment, then you might feel like a Midtown is a safe area. But if you're coming from a small Midwest town, Kansas somewhere, then maybe Midtown is not going to feel safe to you. If it helps at all, I have no problem going to Midtown with my wife and kids and just walking around that area there. We feel like it is a very safe area. We have no feelings of kind of like danger or anything like that in Midtown. But again, it's a relative thing how you feel. But the crime rate, when it comes to the crime rate, this is also going to be a very difficult thing to find. If you look at multiple sources for the crime rate in Midtown, you're going to get as many answers as you found sources. And so I guess the best way for me to answer this is that I feel no kind of danger or anything being in Midtown. I don't think that you should either. But that's certainly going to be a kind of a personal preference of how you feel about that. Number 5 on the list of the 10 things you got to know before moving to Midtown is about the diversity. If you are planning on moving to Midtown, or you just have any questions about what it's like to live here, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. I'm a local real estate agent here in the area. Thank you so much to everybody who has reached out. I'm always happy to help. According to the website statisticalatlas.com, Midtown is 70% white, 5% Hispanic, 13% African American or Black, and 9% Asian. So definitely not a very racially diverse area. Which is surprising. I mean, Atlanta is a melting pot of different cultures. This is certainly one of my favorite parts about Atlanta is that it's not one race, it's not one culture, but that small part of Atlanta, Midtown, is not one of the most racially diverse parts of the entire city of Atlanta. Number 6 on the list of things you got to know about Midtown is the restaurants. The Vortex is one of the most popular classic Midtown restaurants where you get the best burger. There's also Mary Mac's Tea Room, which is one of my favorites. Imagine you've got a Southern grandma from decades ago making you classic Southern food in a classic Southern Victorian setting. This is what it's like in Mary Mac's Tea Room. Amazing Southern food there. Also in Midtown is South City Kitchen. And then there's also Ponce City Market. Ponce City Market is kind of like a whole big thing with lots of restaurants. And it's kind of on the eastern part of Midtown, maybe just outside of Midtown, but it's practically right there and connected to the Beltline. So lots of restaurants in Ponce City Market. Number 7 on the list is where the grocery stores are in Midtown. You've got a Whole Foods on Peachtree Street. You've got a Publix in Atlantic Station, Trader Joe's in Midtown as well. And there's also another Whole Foods on Ponce at the edge of Midtown on the eastern side. Number 8 on the list of the things you got to know before moving to Midtown has to do with the cost of living. Let's talk about how much it costs to buy a home in Midtown. Now, classically, you're going to find condos and townhomes in Midtown. You're not going to find a lot of single family residences like detached, houses. This is not really common in Midtown. There have certainly been quite a few of those sold in the last 6 months, but it's not the most common type of residence. So let's talk about the two different ones, houses and condos or townhomes. When it comes to houses, in the last 6 months, there have been 9 sold in Midtown with an average price point of 1.3 million. But then when it comes to condos or townhomes, there have been over 200 sold in the last 6 months with an average sold price of $363,000. So you can find condos in Midtown as low as 200, maybe 250, and as high as into the millions. There's going to be a very wide range of condos. With houses, though, you're looking at pretty much $1 million plus for a house in Midtown, a very small yard. This is not an area where people move to typically to find a house with a yard. It's not very common. More often is those kinds of condos or townhomes. People want to live there and easily be able to get out, get to the grocery store, get to the restaurant, easy walkability throughout the city. this is far more common than owning a house and like a vehicle and all that. That's not really something that you see very often in Midtown. Which brings us to number 9, transportation. So very easy walkability in Midtown. You can walk to all of the things if you live in this area. There's also MARTA, which goes throughout Midtown. Very easy public transportation to get to different parts of the city. You can get from Midtown to Buckhead, or from Midtown to the airport, or Midtown to Ponce City Market very easily using MARTA. And so very good public transportation there in the area. And then number 10 on the list is the possibly the most important one that you need to know about before moving to Midtown is going to be the pros of living here, but also the cons of living here. If you plan on moving here, you really want to know like the whole picture. And so I made an entire video talking about the pros and the cons of living in Midtown. You can check it out right here. I'll see you in the next one.